Hey, everybody. Hopefully there's people watching or listening. It's Paul Fontaine and Jeff Hawkins here on the Dynamite Show Rewind, our second edition of this special show, courtesy of Lady B, and hopefully she enjoys it. She picked this episode of AEW Dynamite for us to watch. We're going to go back to 2021, which is about almost 4 years ago, July 28th. And it was their Fight for the Fallen, which I think they're still doing, but I can't even remember. I know they're doing a Fighter Fest this year, but I'm not sure about Fight for the Fallen. But they used to do it every year, and it started out as an like an app special on their BR app, and then when they got TV, it became a TV special. And and now I mean they do. It seems like every second week they do another. What do we get this week? We got Spring Break-In or something.
Yeah, every episode is like a very special episode of AEW Dynamite.
Yeah, well, actually, this coming week actually kind of is. I think they're really going for a big number this week because they got no competition and they're loading the show up. So, but Jeff, you did some research, which
I did.
Yeah, like I just watched the show, and then my research consisted of pulling up the Observer 5 minutes before the show started. So, tell me about your research. I wanted to go back and listen or look at my notes from this show, but it turns out Parker was hosting the show at the time, and when he hosted the show, I just watched it and gave my thoughts. I didn't take notes, so I didn't have any notes. But what did you come up with?
One of the good things about these types of episodes is that because my other show, Shake Them Ropes, has been going on for about 14 years, I could just go back and listen to what I was thinking at the time and what I was doing. Here's the lay of the land, kids, in professional wrestling on this date or around this date. I was actually on vacation during this show, so I'm combining this and next week's show a little bit, but the news is interesting too. But AEW is doing over 1 million viewers a week at this point. WWE is in the midst of cuts. They have just cut their number 3 or their 2 or 3 merchandise mover in Bray Wyatt has just been fired along with Ric Flair. Your top programs on the main roster involve Bobby Lashley, Bill Goldberg, and Drew McIntyre.
Oh my God.
NXT is Keith Lee and Karrion Kross. That program. And Chris and I this is so interesting because the people in Voices of Wrestling, especially that one channel where they just crap on everybody who's not the flagship, who accuse us of being WWE apologists and whatnot. I would like to now read you a couple of quotes from this show. Chris Novembrino, I want AEW to beat WWE. Just putting my cards here on the table. Me, I want to see WWE suffer a bit. They're lazy right now.
That was you?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
We are both very excited because Bryan Danielson is on his way, I believe. And
yeah, that was the heavy rumor at the time because he had.
That was a heavy rumor.
Yeah.
There was also a rumor with the cutting of Bray Wyatt, which, by the way, I'm not saying that this is a fact, but it is an educated and with some knowledge guess is that he was cut because he took a mental health break when John Huber passed away. And then they gave all his branding to Alexa Bliss. So we didn't need Bray Wyatt anymore.
Wow. Braun Strowman had been cut too?
Braun Strowman was also cut in this period. Ric Flair's contract was dissolved in this period. A bunch more people were cut during this period. This was still also masks at events type of things. So there were still concerns that these might be super spreader events.
And if I'm not, well, okay. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that WWE was just like about to come out of the Thunderdome. Like, I'm not sure if they actually had yet.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
No, you know what? No, this was, okay, I'm looking at the charts right now because I'm looking at Raw, and there was a huge jump the week of July 19th. So I want to guess that July 19th was their first show out of the Thunderdome.
That sounds about right then.
Yeah.
We're,
So
we're
July
still,
28th. This is like a week later.
yeah, we're still
Um,
cautious about
yeah.
such things.
So
as well.
you mentioned that they were doing 1 million. So Dynamite from July 14th until October 6th. That is a 13-week period. 11 of those 13 weeks, they were over 1 million. And in fact, 8 of them, they're over 1.1 million. And they have not had 8 shows over 1.1 million outside of this time frame in the history of Dynamite. So in some ways, this was the peak of AEW Dynamite in terms of viewership. And I will say, like, as I was watching the show, it felt like the peak. Like,
Go ahead.
It just felt like, man, this company is so hot and there's so much stuff coming. And I didn't even think about the Danielson thing. And I didn't think about Adam Cole. And you didn't mention Adam Cole. His contract was about to expire. I believe
it was about to expire, but it hadn't expired.
I believe it expired July 31st.
Okay.
And they're very much up in the air. WWE wanted to keep him. They had an offer. Vince made him a very nice offer to be Keith Lee's manager.
Yes.
and Adam Cole said, no, thank you. I'd rather headline Wembley in 2 years and then break my foot and get paid for 2 years of doing nothing. So, he chose that road. I'm fibbing. No, he chose the better deal. I'm sure he got more money and a better role.
Chris and I were under the impression that AEW was putting all its cards on the table and going heavy and going all in to go after WWE because the viewership was on an ascent. Raw's numbers were cratering at the time.
Well, I'm looking at the 18 to 49s. And so 0.4, 0.44, 0.45, 0.46. I mean, this is triple what they're doing now. And then when I look at Raw, the same weeks, 0.43, 0.57, 0.49, 0.51, 0.49. They're not that far off. September 15th. September 15th, which is a few weeks away, 6 weeks from now. Oh, and September 8th. They beat Raw both those weeks. In the demo. 0.53 on September 8th to a 0.52 for Raw. And then September 15th, 0.44 to 0.43. That same week. So they're beating Raw in the demo. They are, and then that was it. Like they never
and a couple announcements on this show.
Yes, which I was not. Well, yeah, I mean, they were kind of related, right? I was not expecting this announcement, and until at some point in the show, they said, "Oh, later on, Tony Khan will announce a major new event," and I'm like. Okay, and I remember this because I remember a joke that every time they said Tony Khan would announce something, it wasn't actually Tony Khan.
Right.
It was Tony Schiavone on behalf of Tony Khan. At some point, Tony Khan started making his own announcements, and it was not good.
No.
And then people tried to the language, like if he words it this way. It means it's Schiavone, and if he words it that way, it means he's doing it himself. And it was just random. But I'm thinking, what is this gonna be? Like, it's All In. No, All In's like 2 years away. I'm like, what is this gonna be? And then I figured it out just before because I was like looking at it and I'm thinking, and they're like, you know what it was? It was when I saw Kenny Omega and Hangman, and it reminded me that was supposed to be the main event for All Out that year, and I bought tickets because I wanted to see Hangman and Kenny. Now, at that time, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get into the U.S. because they hadn't opened the borders yet. And in fact, they didn't open the borders. I would have been able to drive across. I couldn't have flown, but I would have been able to drive across. But I didn't. I decided at the last minute not to go, and I sold my ticket to Brady Childs. Who got my ticket and got to see that great show that a lot of people think is the best pay-per-view they ever did. And but I think it was not this week. It might have been the following week. They shot an angle to build to Kenny and Hangman, and they announced tickets are going on sale on Thursday. So it was literally the day before tickets went on sale. They shot an angle for Kenny and Hangman, essentially telling you this is the main event. And then like 2 weeks later, Hangman pulls out, says he's not going to be able to do it because he's having a kid and he needs time off. So yeah. And this,
then
yeah. And I said at the time, like, I was pissed. And I think we even talked about it. Like, they false advertised. Like, they didn't actually announce the match, but they all but announced the match. And then they sold the tickets, and they sold out day one. They sold out like for All Out 2021. Now, as it turned out, they put on a great show. They gave you Bryan Danielson. They gave you Adam Cole. They gave you
here's
Minoru
the funny
Suzuki.
thing, Paul.
Yeah.
If you knew that Hangman was pulling out, that's exactly how you would have booked the finish for this 10-man tag.
Yes, for the 10-man, yeah. Not the next week, because I think the next week, he pinned Kenny. In some sort of a 6-man or something. But yeah, so that's the lay of the land. And was there, you said there was some other stuff, I think, maybe, or was that it for the lay of the land?
That was pretty much all I had for the most part in terms of.
Now, I don't remember what was going on in WWE at the time, but I do remember, like, I don't think my interest in AEW has ever been higher than it was at this point. And my, I want to say rooting for them to succeed. And as you mentioned, you and your co-hosts were all rooting for them to succeed. WWE sucked at this point. Yeah. Vince was still in charge. And I don't think we're a year away from the Janelle Grant thing, right? At least. Like I think it was July 2022 when he had to step down. So, and then he came back, and then he had to quit again, I think in early 2023. So yeah, it was getting better than 2018 to 2020 was really bad. But this wasn't great. I think right around this time, wasn't it, when Sasha left? Or no, we're still a year away.
I just looked that up. It was May 2022 when she left. But this was around the time when the Golden Role Models, I think, were getting broken up. Or maybe I'm a little late on that.
Okay, fill me in on who the Golden Role Models are.
Sasha and Bailey.
Oh my God, yes. I quit watching WWE at some point around here because they did some fuck finish. It might have been before this, but it was like Asuka and Bailey, and it was like somebody won a match that they weren't even in or something.
Yes.
Oh, it was.
I remember this too. Yeah.
I quit. Like I wrote an article on Fight Game Media, and I quit. And I literally quit for like 6 months. I didn't watch a damn thing. I didn't watch the PLEs. I think I came back for Mania, and then I kept watching after that. But it was not good. So we had this AEW Dynamite, and the first thing I'll say, like, I'm watching this show, and the crowd, it seemed like they were in like a full arena, and it was packed, and the crowd was hot. And so I'm looking, and it was in Charlotte, and they were more than 7,000 tickets out, and it was the third largest audience for a Dynamite in history.
I remember, when you watch like Hangman walk out and look out at the crowd, where he has that kind of, a little bit bug eyes, like, oh my God, this is a full house type of a thing. And you just think, wow. I also slightly remember being excited because I believe that it either had been rumored or was announced that David Crockett was going to be there to do like a match or something.
Was that
for the taping?
Okay, so maybe that might have been for like Ring of Honor or something, or not Ring of Honor, but Darker Elevation.
Elevation. Yeah,
we still didn't have Rampage. We'll talk about that. That was announced for later. But they also put up at one point on the screen, and I'm going to pull it up so we can talk about it. The Dark and Elevation, they announced the results, and I'm going to go over these results because, man, I had PTSD flashbacks reading some of these results. But we opened with this is the infamous, and this is what Lady B called it when she asked us to review the show. It was the Space Jam match. Yeah, and it was a 5-on-5 tag, and it was the Dark Order and Hangman Page. And at the time, the Dark Order was huge. Like, they all came out, and they weren't all wrestling. Like they so we had, it was Hangman, Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Johnny Silver, Johnny Hungy, and Alex Reynolds. And then we also had, I think it was 10 and Alan Angels
and Cole Cabana.
And Cole Cabana at ringside. Yeah, yeah. So 3 members at ringside in addition to the guys in the match.
Right.
And this was Johnny Silver's return. He'd been out injured for a long time. And you may recall, astute members of Fight Game Media, while he was injured, he came on in the clinch with me and Ryan Frederick and recapped the UFC. And it was pretty cool. And he was rehabbing his injury at the time, and I reached out to him, and he's like, "Yeah, that'd be cool. I like it. I like MMA." And because I'd heard him on Antonio Promise Thomas's show, and he was saying how he was an MMA fan, so I just took a chance, hit him up, and yeah, he came on the show. So, and I think he got in trouble because he's been ghosting me in the DMs ever since. Because I don't think he was supposed to be doing podcasts without approval. No. Yeah, so it was, and he's never been more over in his life. He was slightly under Hangman in terms of the crowd being behind him, and they booked it. I mean, he was one of the last 2 on his team, and it was pretty cool.
I really liked the promo video that they did for them, where it's like where they have the cowboy hat, guy in a cowboy hat in the shadow, and it's just showing the members of the Dark Order and stuff like that. This was the best thing they ever did for the Dark Order, to be honest with it. It's even better than the Mr. Brody Lee stuff to me in terms of getting them over.
Well, I mean, okay, so the Brody Lee stuff got them over, and then this took them to another level.
Yeah, the Brody Lee stuff. I mean, most of the reason they were over was that ironic because of being the elite,
right?
Stuff with like Trent's mom.
But this was like okay, you got to take
this
these
was
guys
they're over as baby faces. That's
right.
what this was. Yeah,
and this led to, I guess it was later in the year, I think, when they did the Halloween match, and the Dark Order actually won, and that was to set up Hangman and Kenny again when Hangman came back. So, but this was the 5-on-5 tag. And I mean, they booked this perfectly. I mean, in a way, other than the finish.
No.
Well, no. I'm saying other than the finish.
Yeah, but I mean, but there's something here that I don't know. It to me just screams, no, this was stupid.
Okay. I should mention the elite team.
Yes. Go ahead.
It was the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, who is a heel, although you wouldn't know it by the crowd reactions, and the Good Brothers of Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. And they all came out in basketball uniforms, and Justin Roberts gave them basketball intros.
Yes.
He called Carl Anderson, or no, it was Doc Gallows, he called him Dangly, I think. And they all had ironic numbers on their thing. Like Nick Jackson was 777 because that's a perfect number. And I remember this from my recap because that's my number. I always use 777. And Nick Jackson used it as well because we're good Christian boys. And then I think Kenny was 23 for Jordan.
Right.
And Carl Anderson was 2012 because it's the last time he's been relevant. And then
Gallows was 69, right?
Yes.
Somebody had to be.
Yeah, and then I can't remember what Matt was.
Yeah, but everything about this was wrong in terms of this is the cross promotion with Warner Brothers for Space Jam.
Yes.
Too.
Yes, and this is why I like this and I didn't like the Halloween thing because they got paid for this. So
well, they got paid for this, but the heels are the ones who are plugging the product, which is bad.
Well, but they won.
No, it doesn't matter. Number one, they should have. You don't want to shine them as the heels with the product placement. Number one. Number two, there was an opportunity here to play hit 'em high, hit 'em low from the original Space Jam thing. They should have been the Monstars, not the good guys. And yeah, you made them this is the aforementioned Jim Cornette cool heel problem.
Yeah.
Where the heels are cooler than the baby faces.
Yes. And the crowd, I mean, they cheered the heels.
Yes.
I mean, for the most part.
Here.
I mean, there were times when they booed them.
If they had just been doing basketball stuff instead of doing the wrestling at all, just to get on people's nerves, maybe, but still, this is product placement, and you're making the heels the good guys and the cool ones in here, and it just to me that rang a completely incorrect tone.
Yeah. But it was, when they got to the match, I mean, it was a long match. I believe it 25-35 it went. I think they went through 2 commercial breaks. And it was kind of standard. Like Carl Anderson got rid of Alex Reynolds early. Then Evil Uno eliminated Carl Anderson right away. Then Stu Grayson and Doc Gallows were counted out. And then Kenny Omega eliminated Evil Uno. So then we're down to the Bucks and Kenny against John Silver and Hangman. And John Silver got a really nice comeback. He got some nice near falls, and then eventually he gets pinned by Matt Jackson. So now we're down to 3-on-1, and it's Hangman against the Bucks and Kenny. Now, the funny thing is like, so Hangman, I thought as I'm watching this, like I didn't know who won. I didn't look up the results. So I'm like, oh, okay, Hangman's just going to go through all 3 of them, and he's going to pin Kenny at the end, and then that's going to set up the main event that we thought we were getting for All Out 2021. But as it turns out, he pins Matt, and then him and Kenny have a great exchange, a lot of nice near falls or whatever. And then Kenny pins him with the one winning at angle. And like they didn't even eliminate Nick. Like, and it's funny because I didn't even like Nick just kind of disappeared, and then he came back.
JR blew the call. If you recall.
Yeah. And then he's like making excuses for himself. Whatever, missed stuff somehow.
Yeah. And then they tried to, and then Excalibur tried to give context, saying it was a callback to the Hangman Omega versus Young Bucks match. I'm just like, all right, 2 years ago.
Dave in the Observer says the key part of this when it was over is you wanted Page to get what he lost as far as the title shot. So he thought this was good booking.
No, it was not. They killed Hangman
I'm
dead.
Just telling you what Dave said.
A belt shot.
But you remember Dave was on the payroll.
Okay, a belt shot, you could have pinned him. A belt shot and a V trigger, you could have pinned him. A belt shot and 2 V triggers, you could have pinned him. He did a belt shot, 2 V triggers, and a 1-winged angel, just to keep on loading it up. And then it's like, well, he had to do that much. It was, I respect Hangman for taking that much of a beating. Just like this.
Dave's got explanations here for the numbers.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Yeah, Anderson's numbers 2012, the year he placed second to Okada in the G1. So I was right. The last time he was relevant. Gallows was 69 for obvious reasons. Nick was 777, and in brackets it says Nick loves gambling, and that constitutes a jackpot plus the obvious biblical meaning.
Yeah.
So it is. He is like me. He loves gambling and biblical. Matt was 13, and he says the most famous 13 was Wilt Chamberlain, but that's before his time, and it's because Matt was born on March 13th. And
I think it's because it's an unlucky number. That's
he considers it his lucky number though. And Omega wore 23 because of Michael Jordan. So that was obvious.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. It was a good match. Oh, and we didn't mention Kenny Omega is the Impact champion at this point as well. And the
NWA champ, I believe. Somebody said it on
maybe. But AAA. I think he was a AAA champ.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But the person that would end up winning the TNA belt from him, as you may have forgotten, was Christian Cage.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not that far away. That's coming in a few weeks. And if you watch this show, you did not think he was being set up to beat Kenny Omega. But so that was the match. And then they afterwards he hit Kenny with a dead eye and took him out. And Dave writes, Jim Ross obviously didn't know the finish because he thought that was the pin when he hit him. So yeah, that was cool. So then we go backstage, and Alex Marvez was with Pac, and he's about to interview him, and he noted that Penta and Phoenix weren't there. Pac is talking. I don't understand a damn word he's saying.
Okay, he says that they're at the airport. They had some issues with the car because somebody messed up their car.
And I'm like, I don't know who, and they're not telling me who. And then Andrade wanders into the shot, and I'm like, okay, I watched this, and then the next day I watched SmackDown, And I'm pretty sure I saw the exact same segment with Andrade backstage at
Yes, you
SmackDown.
probably did. I mean, this is
Yeah.
Andrade pre-learning most of his English. He still
Yeah,
has
and he's
some, but not a
basically
lot.
trying to buy people at this point. I remember, and this was one of my favorite things in AEW at the time when he
Your
was trying to
kid?
buy Darby Allin.
Darby, I want to buy your kid.
Yeah,
Love that angle.
yeah, that was awesome. But here he's
But
trying
I
to.
love this.
Yeah, it was
Chavo,
good.
I had forgotten Chavo managing
Yep.
Andrade for a cup of coffee, but Andrade comes in and calls back, my little friend,
Yeah,
learn
he's
to drive.
yeah. And so the basic gist was Andrade and Guerrero called the airport, canceled their ride, but then paid for a limo for them, and they got a more luxurious ride to the building and are on their way.
Mm-hmm.
So next we go to a Ricky Starks celebration. And at this point, Ricky Starks had just won the FTW title from Brian Cage. And Cage was simultaneously dumped from Team Taz, which at this point I think was just Ricky Starks and Hook. I don't
Hobbs.
think there was. Oh yeah, Hobbs was there. Yeah, you're right.
Hobbs was out recruiting, quote unquote, according to Ricky Starks.
He's probably injured.
Yes.
And Hook at this point was, I mean, he hadn't started wrestling yet because you remember when
tattoos.
when Punk debuts, he used the line "Send Hook" at one point, and that was what got Hook over. Like he was at this point, he wasn't really over. He was just kind of there. He was actually in pretty good shape. Like he actually, I would say in some ways he looked more like an athlete here. Like maybe not a wrestler, but like a lacrosse player.
Right.
But he was still, he basically the same getup. Like he hasn't really changed. Ricky hasn't changed. Brian Cage he's grown some hair.
Brian Cage as a baby face is the most miscast thing on this show, possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, Jim Ross goes out of his way to bury trombones in wrestling. Which felt like a shot to me about to New Day.
Did you catch what song they were playing when they brought Saints out?
When the Saints go marching in.
Ricky Saints.
Yes. Well, that's why they named him that, because he's from New Orleans.
Right, but I know people I saw some comment that they thought they might play that song for him at some point, and then they did it here.
They might have like Stand and Deliver or something.
But they were horrible. They were
it was look, it was a bunch of local talent that they probably
and I mean the audio wasn't great, and Taz was just hamming it up.
JR is terrible here too. Talking about, I think I saw the bass drum guy in catering or working catering or something like that. I was like, dude, JR was bad throughout this show. This was talent relations.
He had checked out. Yeah, he had checked out at this point. Especially he cuts a promo just cutting down Brian Cage, just tore him a new one. It was so inside, just talking about him never being able to be a star and everything. I was just watching this and I was like, he got some good lines, but this was so counterproductive, if you're trying to build a feud. And then Cage comes out and can't even get his hands on him. He breaks a trombone and Ricky Starks gets away.
Taz is laughing the entire time up in like this elevated place.
He's just so happy he's getting paid at this point for doing nothing. But this was, it was fine, I guess. I'm sure people really liked it at the time. Dave really loved the promo. I didn't think it was his best work. Christian as number one contender was the most miscast thing on the show. Yeah, that could be.
He was over at the time. I hate to tell you that.
He was kind of like Copeland now. So then we got, and I don't know if this is one of your announcements that you talked about. Just out of the blue. And I remember at the time, this was really out of the blue. Like nobody saw this coming. All of a sudden we get a Hiroshi Tanahashi promo, tape vignette, and he cuts a promo and basically challenges the winner of the Lance Archer Hikuleo match coming up tonight. Gee, I wonder who that's going to be.
Tony Khan has opened the forbidden door was how the prelude went. And I believe at this time there was a lot of internet talk as to whether or not he was going to be able to get talent for All Out in Chicago in September.
Yes, and he did. Yes. But the forbidden door term, I believe, had just been used a couple weeks earlier because it was at the end of a Dynamite when Kenta appeared.
Yes.
They did the lights out and then Kenta appeared and everyone went nuts because you may recall for the first couple of years of AEW's existence, they did not have a good working relationship with New Japan. No. And so this was a very big deal at the time. And I remember Parker, my co-host at the time, well, the host of this show, I was the co-host, and he marked out for this. Like, this was just so huge. And I mean, I thought it was a really big deal too. Like that, hey, we're going to see Tanahashi. And I mean, you kind of got the impression, like, yeah, obviously he's going to face Archer, but there might be some more stuff coming with him.
I was under the impression that this was part of AEW's power move to coalesce everybody else behind an AEW banner to go against WWE, because they had TNA. They were building Layla Hirsch versus Camille for the NWA title.
Right.
And they were working with everybody.
Because they sent a bunch of women to that NWA women's show.
Right.
That they did on pay-per-view right around this time. And Jason brings up a great point here. This is the time of WWE trying to get a New Japan relationship for Danielson. So this is like, they're doing an elevator pitch to Danielson here. Like, come to AEW, you might get a match with Tanahashi, you know,
right.
and among other things. So yeah, and then we'll get more of this later. How
many G1s did Danielson do after he left WWE?
The same amount he did in WWE.
Okay, I just wanted to check that. Thank you.
So then we got FTR against Santana and Ortiz, and this was great.
These tracksuits are sick.
Yeah,
I love the Pinnacle tracksuits.
Now I hated their music.
This was the old FTR music. This wasn't the Pinnacle music.
Okay, I didn't like it anyways. I like their new music.
I wept for a moment knowing that MJF totally ruined the Pinnacle by not letting Tully Blanchard talk, but I was happy to see Tully Blanchard.
Yeah, they came out. Well, Tully accompanied them, and when they came out, they had MJF and Sean Spears with them. You may forget Sean Spears was in the Pinnacle,
and Wardlow.
Oh yeah, Wardlow. You're right. And you know, right now they're I guess they're teasing Pinnacle. I thought they were teasing Pinnacle, but I don't think they are actually, because there was no reference to the Pinnacle on Collision last night. But this was a great match. Although I think a couple people got hurt. Wheeler, okay, I remember this when it happened. Like, when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, that was this. Where he got his hand like sliced open or something.
On the turnbuckle.
Yeah. So the match. I mean, I think it was supposed to go a little bit longer. And Ortiz looked like he got his bell rung too. I don't know if that's the case, but he laid there after the pin for a long time.
I didn't like this match as much as you did, but it was mostly
I just thought it was good. Like, it was good tag team.
It was fine. It was just one of those things where it was like there was no increase in energy or emotion in there. It was go out there and have a good star rating match for me, and I just kind of watched. I went, eh. And then I am not a Conan fan, and no, I don't listen to his podcast.
Yeah, I forgot he was with them.
This is when he's DMing everybody on Earth, asking, and he's also trying to get a hook in politically.
They were part of the Inner Circle at this point, so this was part of the Inner Circle versus Pinnacle feud. Right. And he was out. Cash was out for about 6 weeks. They came back and they rematched this on the 100th episode of Dynamite on From Now Arena in Chicago on September 1st. So they did a rematch. Inner Circle won the rematch. They went a little bit longer on the second match.
Yeah.
So,
now Conan doesn't have a nice thing to say about Tony Khan.
No. But back then he was cashing a check.
Oh yeah.
It was a good match. The match just kind of ended. Like, Harwood pinned Ortiz after a brainbuster, and like I said, Ortiz just laid there. Like,
we just kind of went, huh.
Yeah, just kind of felt flat. But I think they ended it early because of the Cash injury. I feel like perhaps, but I'm not positive of that. And there's no indication in Dave's notes here that they were. Then we got a promo with Britt Baker and somebody that they never should have took away from her, Reba, who was great. Right. She didn't do anything here, but she definitely added to the act. And she just cut a Britt Baker promo. She was a heel here, and she just basically cut down everybody like she always does.
You say you break bitches, but I'm the baddest bitch.
Yeah,
even with the broken arm. Rose. But there was an Easter egg here.
What was the Easter egg?
I need to find someone who can protect us both type of a thing. This is setting up for Jamie Hayter's arrival.
Oh, okay. I caught that and I was wondering who that was. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so that basically that ended up Jamie Hayter got super hot and
Yes.
and then that kind of kicked Rebel out the door or Reba. I mean that this was a joke at the time. You couldn't keep the track of the names because it was almost like they were interchangeable, Reba Rebel. Because I think she had been Rebel in TNA.
Yeah, I believe there were copyright issues.
Okay. So then this is where we got the Tony Khan announcement, courtesy of Tony Schiavone, and they announced the first dance, which, if you remember, was a special episode of Rampage. So the first episode of Rampage was going to be taking place on August 13th, so 2 weeks after this. And then the second episode of Rampage, for some reason, called The First Dance. Well, I know why, but it was just kind of funny that it's a second. Why didn't they just make it the first episode of Rampage? And they booked, rather than taping Rampage like they would always do. Well, at the beginning, they were doing live Rampages, but they booked a 13,000 seat building for a Rampage taping. They called it The First Dance. And they basically told you that, oh, yeah, CM Punk's going to debut at that show. But they didn't tell you, but they did tell you. And the fans knew. Because as soon as he made this announcement, we got CM Punk chants in the building. And then we got a Darby Allin promo, which was great.
Well, let me pause you for a second. I believe the reason that this was the second Rampage and not the first is that they had the date already set in stone for the first Rampage, but they couldn't get the United Center for August 13th.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And they wanted, Punk obviously wanted to return in Chicago.
Yes.
And so it made sense to wait. And I think there was some significance with that date as well for him. There was some, he talked about his opening promo.
Was it the Money in the Bank match in Chicago the same day?
Might have been because he was like, exactly however many years ago on this date I did this. I remember that from the promo. But Darby does a promo with Sting. Sting was just there. He didn't say anything, and he basically called out Punk without saying his name. He said,
and this thing sold out in like 5 minutes.
Yep. And
yeah.
And I mean, Darby, he didn't say Punk's name, but he basically said, there's some people out there that call themselves the best in the world. Well, if you think that you're the best in the world, I'll be there. You be there. And we'll see who's the best in the world.
I loved this promo. I was so jazzed for CM Punk coming back. I thought, this is it, man. This is what's going to turn the tide, and this is going to be the wrestling war.
Did for a bit. So, and Parker, again, CM Punk was his favorite wrestler. So he was over the moon on this. I wish I could have heard this episode, but it's lost because we were on a paywall back then, and it's not. I can't even find it.
CM Punk's coming in to teach these guys how to cut a promo.
Yeah, well, he did. He did. And he sold some tickets and he sold some pay-per-views and
got some ice cream bars.
And then things went sour fairly quickly.
Speaking of going sour, our next match.
Yeah, the next match was Lance Archer and Hikuleo, and this was not good.
What's this? Oh, JR calls it bowling shoe ugly, which is the which is a sign that he hates it. Yeah.
What's his name? Haku was out there with his son, Hikuleo.
Always a pleasure to see Haku.
And he was the most over guy in the crowd, in the building, or in the match, I should say. And he got to do the tongue and death grip, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Like I'm watching this though, and this is 4 years ago, and Hikuleo is a monster, and he's a decent wrestler, and I'm like, this guy's been in WWE for a year now, and he hasn't done a thing. Like he hasn't been on TV, he hasn't like nothing. I'm like, why not? Like, I guess they got something for him, but it's weird because I got to think this guy could be on TV right now, but I don't know. But this was not good at all. No. Lance Archer won with his blackout.
And, I believe Lance Archer was the New Japan.
He was the IWGP US champion. He beat John Moxley in a Texas death match the week before. And
in
this got him a
Dallas,
match.
was that the Dallas New Japan
so.
G1 or no? Okay.
No, it was on Dynamite, I believe.
Oh, it was on Dynamite. Okay,
I believe. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was on Dynamite. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody says he's debuting in a month. So there you go, Hikuleo. So we'll see. I think I've been hearing that for a year.
Yes, you have.
But hopefully he's right, because I would like to see him. But yeah, so they didn't care about Archer. They didn't know Hikuleo. The crowd just didn't care about this at all. And it was, at least it wasn't long. It was 7 minutes and 14 seconds. It felt at least twice that long. Because they went through a break, and my feed didn't cut out the commercials, so it was super long. So yeah, that was that. Then we got a Cody Rhodes promo. Well, what not? We got what was supposed to be a Cody Rhodes promo.
A Cody Rhodes promo.
Yeah,
yes.
So they go backstage, and they're in like Gorilla or whatever AEW calls Gorilla, and they've got these cute little signs, and it's EVP, and then Cody's under that one with a headset, and then there was one that had, I don't know what it said, I can't remember, but Jerry Lynn was there, and whatever his title is. And then you saw Tony Khan off to the side, so he couldn't make his announcement. He had to be in this scene. And he just so bad. But he's about to cut a promo, and he gets attacked by Malachi Black, who had just debuted.
To a large pop.
Yeah, large pop. They go out to the arena, and the pop is even larger, and Cody's getting booed as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the AEW crowd is full on turned on Cody at this point.
Yeah, well, this is shortly after he had done that promo where he ended racism. And this was, they sent out a bunch of people to break it up, including Fuego del Sol, and Malachi Black kicked his head off his body. He was so hot at this point, Malachi Black.
Yes.
I was sure he was going to be headlining pay-per-views by the end of the year.
Same.
Yeah, and I think they dropped the ball with him. I really do.
I
know he wouldn't job.
B.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? When you got something hot, run with it.
Yeah, but he wanted to do his dark and spooky crap.
Well, that's true. And he was starting it here. He even said that after he laid out Cody, he just looked at the camera and he said, "Welcome to the House of Black," or something like that.
Yes.
Like, oh no.
Yes.
And we would see a future member of the House of Black a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I was, and they're setting up a match for next week. He's going to wrestle at the Homecoming. So another special episode of Dynamite next week against Cody Rhodes. And I remember that match. And that one was, I feel like it was a little disappointing because they wrestled for a long time and they went through the crowd and everything. I think Black won, but it probably went too long if I'm remembering right.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Then we got one of the best things on AEW television at this time period.
Yes.
Miro.
The Redeemer gimmick is so great. I love this.
My God has cursed me with a broken neck, with a fragile neck, but he's also given me a double jointed wife.
Yes.
Oh my God. He was so great. He was the TNT champion at this time, and all he did was cut promos. He never wrestled. He's God's favorite champion. And David writes, "I don't know if she's coming in, but boy, is he pushing the idea in his promos." I think it was like 2 years later before she finally showed up.
It was because remember, he takes that, he does a couple movies, takes an extended break.
She comes in, she does like 3 shows, and then she's gone.
And she turns on him in that period too. Yeah.
And then they broke up.
Andrade.
They broke up in real life, except that they didn't really break up.
They did it as a work, and now they had
a worked real life breakup.
Yes.
Okay. And he called out Lee Johnson for a match next week. And I guess this would be a good time to mention these tapings results. So they aired on the screen the results of the Dark Elevation and the AEW Dark tapings. Okay. Get ready for these AEW Dark Elevation results.
Okay, pause after each thing in case I have a question.
Okay. Jungle Boy beat Mark Quinn.
That's a match that happened. Go ahead.
Yuka Sakazaki defeated Amber Nova.
Yuka Sakazaki, always a pleasure. Continue.
Thunder Rosa beat Thunder Rosa, who wasn't even signed yet I think she announces that she signed later on in a promo.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a second.
She defeats Micah Madrid, who God knows who that is.
Local talent.
Luchasaurus. Oh, see if you remember this name. Defeats Jora Joel.
Yes, he was part of
the Hardy family office, and he was going to be the first big Indian star for AEW. And boy, did that fail.
It was like their intern or something originally, right?
Yeah, and all he did was lose. They did video packages for this dude, and
but they only put him on Elevation, right? And Dark.
Yeah, well, I think he may have done like he job guy on Dynamite a couple times, but
no, I don't think they ever gave him a match on Dynamite. I think they just brought him out for like run-ins with the Hardy family office. And that's Jora Joel.
By the way, we're not even halfway through.
Okay.
Scorpio Sky defeats Fuego del Sol.
Scorpio Sky. Continue.
And Helico defeats Marco Stunt.
Yeah.
Chris Statlander and Ty Conte defeat Maddie Renkowski, who is now Ren Sinclair.
Yes.
And the Bunny.
I'll watch that match.
Yeah. That sounds like something I'd enjoy. Wardlow defeats Bear Brunson.
This is probably when Maddie Renkowski is getting all that crap on the internet for copying Bianca Belair's ponytail. Yeah.
Now, Wardlow defeats Bear Bronson by referee's decision. So that sounds like he just beat him into oblivion, right?
Yeah.
How long do you think this match would have gone?
35 seconds.
4 minutes and 32 seconds.
Wow.
I can't imagine how bad that must have been. Lee Johnson, and this would be how he earned his TNT title shot, I guess, with Dustin Rhodes, defeats Luther.
God. Lee Johnson, who has risen from the... No, he hasn't. Never mind.
No.
Continue.
Eddie Kingston defeated Serpentico.
Okay.
So I don't even think he was on TV at this point. Lucha Bros, now both in WWE, defeated the Dark Order, Alan Angels, and 10. So they... Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
The Nightmare Family. Get this team. Billy Gunn, Colton Gunn, and Brock Anderson.
All right.
Defeats Cameron Cole. No idea who that is. I just pulled him up to see if he was anybody, and he's not. Chandler Hopkins. Also nobody. And Izzy James. Also nobody. Okay. Nothing big there. And then your main event of Dark Elevation, Pac defeats Chuck Taylor with Orange Cassidy and Wheeler Yuta.
Of course.
Yeah. Now, that was Dark Elevation. AW Dark the next night. So that would be Monday night.
Just run through these because I'm not going to have any other comments.
All right. Oh, my God. Yeah, this... Is this the right
Spit them
one?
out.
Oh, hang on. No, you know what? This isn't the right one. This was Dark 100, which was a special episode. Okay. Dark 99. Oh, yeah, this is short. Red Velvet defeats Alejandro Lyon.
All right.
Abaddon beats Killa Kate.
Oh, we brought her in for a date? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Diamante defeats Big Swole. The Dark Order of Evil Uno and Stu Grayson defeats Warren Johnson and Zach Mason. Okay. And the main event, and I remember this one when they showed it on the screen, Dante Martin and the Varsity Blondes of Brian Pillman Jr., now Lexus King, and Griff Garrison, now Griff Garrison, with Julia Hart, defeats the Hollywood Hunk, Ryan Nemeth.
Yes.
And
Pete
the
Avalon?
Acclaimed.
Oh, the Acclaimed. Okay.
Yeah. The Acclaimed were dark jobbers 4 years ago. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
They would rise from that level. This, by the way, got a 3.38 rating out of 10 on Cage Match. People didn't like this one. But the next episode of Dark had like John Moxley on it and like 17 matches. It was like...
Yes, I remember those. Those were terrible.
It was Dark 100. But yeah, so That was Dark and Elevation going on at that time. And I, at that time, didn't even watch this most weeks, but there became a time when I started watching it every week.
You
I don't
know,
know why.
I forgot on the next match that the Hardy family office was 4 years ago, and Angelico's career was already done.
Yeah.
Because Jack Evans wasn't being brought back anytime soon. Because
No, he would soon get
various
hooked up with
issues.
Serpentico, and
yes,
and now he's
And
what's
Dr.
the
Luke.
Spanish Announce Project, I believe, is their
Yes,
name.
yeah.
So yeah, your next match is Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, accompanied by Marco Stunt, with against Private Party and Angelico. And Private Party looked a million times cooler here. I like the getup.
The Jurassic Express was mad over.
Crazy over, yeah. Jungle Boy, I forgot how over he was with that song. Like,
the Baltimore song.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh. And Luchasaurus, the hot tag. I mean, it's the easiest thing. Jungle Boy was a great baby face. Marco
Christian got his own entrance, and
yep.
Yeah.
Marco didn't do a damn thing. Yeah, Christian was outwork everyone. That was his thing, and he was a baby face here for about another year, I think, before he finally turned on them. It took forever. You saw it coming a mile away, and when it finally did, it finally did.
Like you figured he'd be turned back by now, but nope.
And then there was a forgotten member of the Hardy family office that shows up after the match. So the match won. Christian got a splash on Quen for the pin. They had a decent match. It wasn't very long. It was under 5 minutes, actually. But and then after the match, Christian is going around ringside slapping hands with fans, which is usually the cue that there's an angle coming. And then in pure AEW fashion, the camera cut away before the angle actually happened. And we saw the aftermath of the angle, which was Blade laid out. Blade was in disguise, and he laid out Christian with brass knucks. And that set
the entire mid card is in the Hardy family office right now.
Yes. And that set up a match for next week between Christian and Blade. I didn't check the spoilers to see who won that, but I assume Blade made a good accounting of himself.
I think Christian won that, though.
I would imagine, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, he was, I guess, in the Hardy family office as well. I think this is probably during Butcher's injury, I would assume. And I think Bunny was in here too. It was in that group.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we got Thunder Rosa beating Julia Hart with a Fire Thunder driver in 4 minutes. Julia was green as grass here.
No, but I miss babyface Julia Hart.
Yeah.
I
love their theme music.
Their theme music's great. I miss this kind of pop for Thunder Rosa, who it was announced has signed a multi-year deal with AEW.
She was the number one contender and won 18 straight matches, and she wasn't under contract.
Right. La Mera.
Yeah.
Boy, man, she was mad over during this time. Yeah.
Until Britt decided that she didn't like her.
Britt decided to sandbag her.
And Dave writes, there's a strong tease for Baker versus Rosa at the next pay-per-view show. I mean, the strong tease is that Thunder Rosa is the number one contender and she's won all these matches in a row. They didn't really do anything.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Dave writes, Hart has a good look and good athletic ability, but she was very green. To the point, the announcers actually put over her athletic ability and noted she was green.
Yes. Especially JR.
Yeah. But you could tell that they had saw something in her, and she was going to be the breakout star of this crew of jobbers.
I really liked the Varsity Blondes. I thought they had something.
They should have done something with them. They really should have.
Especially Griff Garrison, who has a great backstory.
And
he's Ivy League. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And now he's, and they still could do something with him and Cole Carter. I mean, they got a good look and they're decent wrestlers.
Is Cole Carter still employed?
Yeah. Yeah. They have a new group called.
I know they do that Red Solo Cup stuff.
So they're basically, they might as well just call themselves the Bro Squad. Like they're just four bros. I can't remember what their actual name is, but they're Gronks. Like they're four Gronks. They're going nowhere.
Yeah.
So then we got the Jon Moxley promo. Now this is kind of sad.
Pre-rehab.
In fact, he's drinking during the promo.
Yes, he has a flask and he's talking about being at the airport bar. That's
I have zero doubt that there was alcohol in this flask. And he cut a promo on Tanahashi. Now, he did have a great line. He's at the airport bar, and he's watching the Olympics, which, if you recall, were a year late this year.
They did a special version, because both NXT and Raw were doing like Simone Biles promos.
Yeah,
in some ways about mental health.
because it's always in even years, 20, 22, 24, 26.
Yeah, this was the special post-COVID Olympics.
So he says, I'm watching, whatever, Bulgaria and Ethiopia have a water polo match or something, and I'm wondering, how do these guys get in Japan and I can't?
Right.
That was a good line. Because he's been trying to get to Japan because he wants to wrestle Tanahashi. And then Tanahashi comes on my show and challenges Lance Archer. He says, well, guess what, Tanahashi? You blew it. You're not getting me now. He says, but I've got a stack of contracts and my lawyer's going to send him to New Japan and I'll wrestle anybody but Tanahashi. So, of course, like, they're building up Moxley and Tanahashi. Like, right. That's code. I'm not actually sure if that ever actually happened. Maybe it must have. But, it was a decent promo by Jon Moxley standards. He was still doing the thing where he's all over the place that you don't like.
Right. He was rambling a bit.
And it was, again, when when you see a guy that's now recovering alcoholic drinking during a promo, a little uncomfortable. But
the flask made me uncomfortable.
But but that was that. And then we got the main event, which was Chris Jericho and Nick Gage in a no DQ street fight. Now, this was part of the Five Labors of Jericho, yeah. 5 Labors of Jericho, which MJF set up, and he did this at the time. I think he did it on like 3 straight feuds. He did it with Cody, did it with Jericho. Maybe it was just those two. And he was picking the opponents. So I can't remember who he picked the first week. I want to say maybe it was like Shawn Spears in a chair match or something. I can't remember at all. I could probably look it up.
That sounds about right. I'll look it up. You could.
But then so then he picks Nick Gage, and of course, and they did a Nick Gage promo before the match, and it was like a vignette, and they showed Nick Gage, and they showed the pizza cutter. So I mean, if you watched this match, you knew what you were getting, and if you didn't like what you saw in the video package, you probably shouldn't have watched the match. So as far as I'm concerned, like, I was probably more offended, I don't know what the word is, offended, shocked, disgusted, whatever, by this the first time I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch it here, like, they've gone so much farther than this since then that this was like nothing. I mean, it almost looked like comedy in a way.
Yeah, the five Labors of Jericho was supposed to be him going through all 5 members of the Pinnacle originally.
Okay,
but they switched it up when they found out they could get Nick Gage. MJF had suggested. So that first week was Shawn Spears, I believe, and then the next week was Nick Gage. And then they got Hoovy. Okay. 2 years ago, the first time MJF and I ever did a face-to-face promo, it was in Nashville, and we were kind of going back and forth, Jericho recalled, and I needed some kind of joke or some kind of jab at him. I couldn't think of anything, so I called Brian Gewirtz. I said, Brian, do you have any jokes about MJF? He said, well, how about when your parents were watching me beat Juventud Guerrera, they got horny and they had sex, and then you popped out. So the crowd started chanting Hoovy, and then just off the fly, I said, Google it. I planned the Hoovy, but when they were chanting, that's when I just said, Google it.
Oh.
I remember that Lance Storm was also in some of these negotiations, but then decided not to do it because he wasn't in good enough shape.
Yeah, he was on the Alvarez show, and I think Brian flat out asked him, and he was just, well, if they ask me, I'll do it, or something like that. But I guess they never asked, or he was just kayfabing or whatever. But so they got Nick Gage, and they had a hardcore match, and a lot of blood.
Jim Ross quit halfway through it. I think he was just done with it.
They used light tubes. Jericho was busted open, and then he used a pizza cutter to the face. And of course, like, when I watched it up here in Canada, I didn't know anything different. And when I watched it on Triller, they just kept the match going. But on TV, on TNT at the time, they cut immediately to a Domino's pizza commercial.
Yep, and WWE contacted Domino's.
Yep, and I think they lost them as a sponsor. I may be wrong, but whatever, they're fine. And yeah, eventually, obviously, Jericho got the win with the Judas effect. And then MJF came out and he did the challenge. And as
This
you
was
mentioned,
fantastic, MJF, by the way.
oh, yeah. So MJF was on commentary for this match. And his voice, like, I don't know what it was.
It was higher pitched.
Yes.
It sounds like his voice has been damaged by drinking of some sort or something else.
Yeah, and
Because he has a
like,
much lower timbre to his voice.
And
now.
he was great. Like,
Yes.
he sounded like a professional commentator.
His
like,
opening line, "I don't make matches, I make movies, and I've brought popcorn because I have a great horror film to watch here." Yeah, he sounded very, very different than he is now.
Yeah, it almost to the point where it didn't even sound like the same guy. Like, I'm listening and I'm like, who is this? And then, oh shit, that's MJF. Like, yeah, it didn't. And when he's doing his promo, he still has the MJF promo voice. So it was when he was doing commentary when he sounded different. And if you and I urge you, like, if you're just listening to us and you haven't actually watched the show, go back and listen to this. Like, you'll be amazed at how much
it's on the Internet Archive. You can get it for free if you.
Oh, there you go.
Enough.
There you go.
I loved everything about the post match promo. I love that he brought up, hey, I brought film of the promo from 2 years ago, and we're gonna put it because I mean that was. I just got done on my show showing Chris the Ole Anderson turn on Dusty Rhodes in 1980. And within that, he goes, "What? You said that was never going to end." And then he played this Dusty Rhodes promo from years prior saying it was never going to end with him. I love that. I love those types of Easter eggs. I love that kind of callback. And I love that he made Hoovy the next guy. I was excited about this match too.
Yeah. And if I remember right, like they had a decent enough match.
It was good for two guys who hadn't worked for a while. And then Hoovy tried to get a job out of it.
Yeah,
from what I recall. That didn't work.
Which didn't work very well. No, he doesn't understand cameo. But
I don't think I would have. See, I hate this Painmaker character, but
I think didn't he just use it for this match?
Yes, he brought. Well, he had done it in New Japan. And he goes, "I need to." It was kind of like the Cactus Jack thing, where I have to dig in deep to go to that place to do this.
Right.
Like, okay.
So I'll just quickly run down what these shows did this week. So yeah, this episode of AEW Dynamite did 1,108,000 viewers and a 0.45 in 18 to 49. NXT did 520,000 and a 0.12. Now, I do think that they had been moved to Sci-Fi for the Olympics, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so, that sounds right.
Yeah, so that would be part of why the week before they had done a 0.20 and 709,000, which is, around what they do now. Actually, the demo's a little higher.
Because USA was broadcasting Olympics at the time.
Raw did a 0.49 and 1.814 million. So that's about what they were doing right before they left for Netflix, and who knows what they're doing now. It depends if you listen to Dave or Brandon Thurston. And SmackDown did 2.137 million and a 0.55. So again, about what they were doing before they left Fox. And of course they were on Fox at this point. And that was it. That was all we had. We had no Rampage, no Collision, just those shows. So
I thought that Rampage show was going to take a dent out of SmackDown on Fridays, and
well, I mean, remember when Ty Conte beat Roman Reigns?
because they planned they planned it for after SmackDown so that people would then turn to it, and it was like, that was a mistake, I think.
Well, yeah, and just the idea of like once you get the Punk debut out of the way, like what are you gonna do? And it turned out it was just another episode of Dark. Basically,
that Punk debut was fantastic, though.
All they did really, like after the first, I'd say 2 months of Rampage, like after they went all the way through the Grand Slam, Dynamite and Rampage. After that, essentially all they did was like chop off a couple matches off of Dark Elevation and move it over to Rampage. Like that's basically what Rampage became.
I mean, Rampage became Private Party and Top Flight every week.
Jason thinks it might have been the Bunny that beat Roman Reigns.
Sounds about right.
I feel like it was Ty Conti, but
might have been Ty Conti versus the Bunny.
It might have been. And someone else beat Becky and Sasha. He says, I feel like that was like Bryan Danielson and Minoru Suzuki. Remember they put that match on YouTube because he was trying to beat He was an idiot. Yeah, we did a special show. Oh no, was it? Yeah, I think it was me and you. We did a special show covering the debut of Rampage, or not the debut, but when they did that head-to-head show with SmackDown, and people were watching SmackDown as we were recapping Rampage or something. Like, I seem to remember that. I think Garrett might have been on it too. Anyways, yeah, so much stuff that could have been. But I will say, like, again, my overall thoughts of this was when I was watching it, and I didn't even look at the ratings until just today. But when I was watching the show, it just felt like, man, this company's hot. They've got all this stuff coming. I didn't even think about Danielson or Cole. It was just, I knew Punk was coming. And it's like, and we got Malachi Black coming up. We got Miro.
And they have a chance when they belt Hangman to go even more popular because they'll finally be belting one of their stars. Oops.
You know what? You know what just occurred to me? And this thought has never crossed my mind. I wonder if some of the heat between Punk and Hangman might have been Punk showing up and looking at this missed opportunity of Hangman, who was supposed to headline one of their biggest shows of the year and decided to take 4 months off to have a kid.
To take a powder, yeah.
And Punk probably, like, in the back of his mind, like, probably just lost like 80% of the respect he might have had for him.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure he thought he was coming into a company that was going to be hot, and then, okay, I'll be able to challenge Page when he's at his hottest. I'll turn heel. I'll be the guy coming in from WWE to do that. We'll make a lot of money. We'll sell out a lot of houses. And then it was just, I think that got put on the back burner and in the back of his head. And then when Hangman did the whole thing about, you know what, I don't need to listen to veterans about promos and stuff, that just set him off. He's like,
and by the time they got to Hangman and Kenny, he'd lost a lot of steam.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And
Kenny had lost a lot of steam too, right, as a heel. He was like
they peaked the angle, or they did the angle to peak at All Out. And then they ended up having to go till Full Gear because Hangman took time off.
They got lost. I mean, they were treading water for 4 months.
And then they beat him. They Christian beats Kenny, and that, that kind of took a chunk out of him. And then I can't remember who Kenny wrestled at All Out that year. But then he wrestled Danielson.
Was it Ospreay?
Not Ospreay. No, not Ospreay.
Okay.
I could find out here actually pretty quick because
I might mixing that up with something else. Okay.
No, Ospreay hadn't even hadn't.
I thought that was part of that Forbidden Door thing, but maybe I was wrong.
What is? Holy shit! They did a lot of shows back then. Hang on. I'm almost...
they were a hot company.
Yeah. What? Oh, All Out. Here we go. AW All Out. 9.52 rating. Good Lord.
Naito? No.
Christian Cage. It was a rematch.
Christian Cage. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
They immediately rematched it almost. Like it was like Christian won the title, and then and it was in the middle of the build for that match.
You know what's funny? I'm looking at this card, and everyone calls this like the best show, a lot of people call this the best show that they ever did. And really, like, in terms of like star ratings, like, it's, if you just look at it on paper, it's not actually that great of a show, but it's because of the
debuts. It was the
debuts. It was the angles. It was everything.
Yes.
There's a lesson there. There's a lesson there. Yeah. Oh, here we go. What is this? Someone did a timeline of Punk and AEW with all the interviews and everyone. Hangman did an interview after he lost his belt, and he said in the interview that being the champ wasn't fun, and he didn't handle it.
Because they didn't do anything with him as champion either. He did that 1-2 week feud with Lance Archer, and then was directly into the Moxley morass, right? Or was it the Punk morass?
I think so. Which one. No, that was a year later. And then Jason brings up that it caused issues with AAA as well because they wanted to have Andrade beat Kenny the next night for the title.
Right.
And probably Tony didn't want to beat Kenny 2 nights in a row. So, yeah. So that was that. That was fun.
Yeah, Jason reminded us that Christian won the TNA title to heat up the feud, and it did just the opposite, as I recall.
Yeah, no, and it killed the TNA like AEW thing. Like nobody cared about Christian.
Well, nobody cared about Kenny over there either. I mean, they didn't move any numbers on that show when Kenny was the champ.
No, they did. They had their biggest pay-per-view since Joe and Angle when Kenny defended against, I want to say, Rich Swann.
Oh, okay.
But
Free
no, I
agent
mean,
Rich Swann, by
and
the
the
way.
first TV with Kenny did an insane number. And
Did
then,
it?
well, yeah, but then everybody watched Impact and realized it sucked and nobody watched it again. Like, it was so bad. No, because they were in an empty arena and
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember these impacts. They
yeah.
weren't good.
No.
Oh yeah, they doubled their ratings from 0.01 to 0.02. Hey, how about that?
Double is double. So yeah, this was fun, and we'll probably do it again soon because we're at $20 in our running tab because I can't remember who. Oh, it was DJ Cass.
Yeah, the kid
the
who's
guy's
doing
gonna be
the
a
referee
referee.
training.
Yeah, so he got us up to 20. So as soon as we get to 25, whoever gets us there is going to get to pick the next show. So we'll do that.
I think DJ Cass giving most of the money should be able to pick it.
Well, if he wants to, he can.
Okay.
I'll ask him. But anyways, yeah, so that was that. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I watched it. I mean, I found some time, which was a busy weekend, but it was worth it. I just didn't watch 2 episodes of Severance, and that I'm probably better off for it. So we'll be back on Wednesday with whatever this special episode is called, Spring Break-In, Spring Breakout, or something. I think it's Spring Breakout.
With Spring Breakout, because they're breaking out of the shadow of Nitro.
Big show. It's Mercedes and Athena, Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita, and the trios title match with the Death Riders against the Ops. So
they better play that FTR 2.0 angle and then Matt Menard's promo. If they don't, it's malpractice, but that's me.
Yeah, no, that was great. I just wish Tony would have got pile driven, but can't have it all. But Nigel was great. Nigel was unbelievable in that angle. If you haven't seen it, go watch it on Collision yesterday. So, Jeff, you want to plug anything?
I do a show called Shake Them Ropes on Voices of Wrestling. I plug it every week. But I'm also at Crap Game 13. So you people start thinking of Dynamite episodes of note that we should watch.
I got a few, but it's up to you. So,
are you going to give $25?
If I want you to watch something I know you hate, I might.
So that might be worth it.
Yeah. So for Jeff Hawkins, I've been Paul Fontaine, and this has been the Dynamite Rewind.
Just pick a Dynamite.